Man-made islands 7 times the size of Central Park. Tacos El Pastor, and why you'll need to leave extra room in your luggage for a tortilla press. This week, we're in Xochimilco in Mexico City.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. Destination Eat Drink is where food and travel intersect at the Destination Eat Drink website, on the Destination Eat Drink YouTube channel, and right here on the Destination Eat Drink podcast. This week, we're in Mexico City with Victor Gamboa. But first, if you like the podcast, please rate and review us on your podcast app. And if you really like the show, consider a one-time or recurring contribution in any amount at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. And thank you so very, very much. Victor Gamboa is a foodie tour guide for Culinary Backstreets. He's also an environmentalist who designed a tour of the fragile ecosystem of Xochimilco in the heart of Mexico City. Victor talks about this special place that fed Mexico City for 400 years and the creative ways of getting rich nutrients into the soil to keep those farms going. Plus, Victor shares the urban myth of the Island of the Dolls, and we talk about where to find the best tacos. Okay, I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Victor from Culinary Backstreets, I'm so excited to have you on Destination Eat Drink today to talk about Mexico City and Xochimilco.
Thank you very much. It's a great, exciting chance to talk about that beautiful place.
Yeah, it is a wonderful place. I've been there. I love it. But for folks who haven't been to Xochimilco in Mexico City, what can you tell them about that? What is it about it that makes it so beautiful and special?
Well, first of all, it's unique. It's one of the few places in the world we have a waterland inside of a massive city with such a great space for, well, dedicated for agriculture or related to agriculture, but also it's a great experiment for humans trying to do good. You know, like since the beginning of the times, it's one of these landmarks in human life where we realize how to interact with nature, how to obtain benefits and results without affecting the environment. So the idea or the concept created in Xochimilco in the pre-Hispanic times around agriculture, well, reflects a great evolved system of thinking, but also a beautiful result, which is amazing. Now it has canals. It's a waterland. It's properly talking. It's a waterland. It's a quite shallow system that has been transformed during the last 400 years. But this is let's say the greatest way to understand the structures created by the pre-Hispanic cultures and what we call it chinampas, these agricultural units that create one of the most efficient systems for agriculture in the world.
It's fascinating because when you say the word canals, I think the thing that leaps to most people's minds is maybe Amsterdam or Venice, but that's a completely different idea because those are, surrounded by stone buildings in an urban setting. This is much more rural and agricultural, even though, like you said, it's right in the middle of Mexico City. And what's fascinating is all of these agricultural plots that are almost like islands in the canals, and these were all man-made, right?
That's right. Thanks for using the word island because that's a bit more accurate than a floating garden. That's a concept I really disturbs me because there's no floatability on these gardens.
Right.
The chinampas are those great structures made in a complete engineering process. It's not just like floating and thinking or just keeping floating. It's like, as you mentioned, like in Amsterdam, it's a great way to intervene a lake, great to explain the benefits of the agriculture, but also the intervention of a hydraulic space, which makes it even more peculiar because what we have there, it's handmade sculptures and like human creations that give us as result.
These islands are still used for agriculture today. Are these individual farmers that are working on these, individual families, or do families own several of these islands? How does it work specifically?
Well, this area, it's huge. Just to put it in perspective, it's around 6 up to 7 times Central Park.
Wow.
Just to put it in perspective. Now, it's much bigger than Chapultepec Park, that within the city, it's also a great green area. So the space that covers the Xochimilco Agricultural Center, it's massive. And also we have to take in account that the Chinampas also go to the area called Chalco in Tláhuac, right? And well, the idea of the space is very important. The Chinampas and the Chinampero area as an agricultural center has suffered all the side effects of the war, climate change, and economical pressure that it places the people. So we have a long process of forced migration that involves economical situations, or just think about all the migrants that happen to go to the States or stay in the city. So we're talking about a process that has changed the activities in the area for the last 150 years. So unfortunately, we're talking about this area having 60 up to 70% of all the plots out of agricultural order in what we call it abandonment process or forced migration processes. So the area of opportunity, it's huge. And the people who still owns and concessions for the land and to work in the land, it's in a diverse system too. Because a long time ago, we created the ejido system, which is a communal land system, a distribution. Also, we have transformed the law, and now we have private land and also governmental owned land. So it's very diverse and quite complex also. The tissue created by the owners and the families and the people who have interest of the stakeholders around there are very diverse.
You know, I've got so many questions about these islands. I've got so many questions about how the farming gets done, because back in the day, I used to have a small, what we would call in the States, a gentleman's farm, where I grew a lot of organic crops and sold them at a farmer's market that we started in our town. And I know how difficult it was to get stuff from point A to point B. And that's on paved roads with a truck. This is through a system of canals. How do you just physically get logistically stuff from point A to point B? It's all on boats. It must be a rather complicated process.
Yes, but it's quite efficient also in terms of how the land works. In terms of logistics, it's the biggest challenge. But also that gives us an example of how the productive land is to supply food to the city. So Xochimilco has been it was the main supplier to the city for 650 years. From 1350 to 1950, more or less, the area supplied food to the city. So in some point, those canals reach all the way to the city center. So the area today explains also the dehydration process and how challenging was to transit from water to asphalt, and also the effects of that. And well, still nowadays we have around 12 to 13,000 people moving inside of the Chinampas, working, and all of them go by boat. So we're talking about more or less 130, 150 kilometers of transitable canals. So it's quite an extended area. And yeah, the challenge is the Xochimilco farmlands are in the city in a connected canal like a system, no? But the only way to get there is by boat. That's the only way. Some people row, sometimes they have motorboats, sometimes they do like kayaking or canoeing. So that's the way to get there, which is crazy because you have like one of the most densely parts of the world next to this area.
Yeah, it's crazy because you're in Mexico City, which, like you said, it's so densely populated. There's so much going on. And then you've got this, it's like New York, I guess, when you talk about Central Park, although you said Central Park is minuscule compared to Xochimilco. But it's kind of that same idea. You've got kind of an oasis, kind of a paradise right in the middle of the city. Now, what kinds of crops are typically grown on these little plots of land?
Well, the blessing of the soil, it's one of the most fertile soil you can find. You can grow almost everything, but as a common practice there, and also in terms of costs, it's very common to find flowers, edible flowers or decorative flowers. That's one of the main things, but also a lot of grains, all kinds of lettuce, all kind of beetroots, all kind of cauliflowers, broccolini, most of the greens you can imagine. Also, the three features, the corn, squash, and beans system, plus all the companion plants that go with them. But it's amazing that this area can produce up to 4 crops a year. So it's a constant rotation of crops and association of crops. So it's everything but monocropping, it's like diversity in during the whole year, from, as I mentioned, tubers all the way to the decorative flowers or edible flowers.
Because the weather is so good and the soil is so rich, are they amending the soil? Are they just using the nitrogen from the Three Sisters? How do you get fertilizer in there? It's organic, I would imagine.
Well, that's a fantastic part. The area of Xochimilco, first of all, it's surrounded by a very complex volcanic system. So the geological formations we have in the south, it's called the Neo-Volcanic Mexican Belt, or also the Ajusco Range, which is a massive amount of volcanoes together that once upon a time were all active and were giving us a lot of sediment, enriching sediment that stayed in the lake for a long time. So an essential part of the agricultural process there is drenching the lake, making an extraction system very peculiar, loderos, that is basically people extracting the mud from the canals and making this sort of nursery made of mud with very enriched soil, 10 up to 14% of organic matter in that soil, and a very interesting process called chapin, which is basically a nursery system that approaches to the lake by extracting the mud and then using it as a nutrient bed. And I love to say that with this system, at the result, it's having nutrient pots. We plant soil and we harvest food. It's a quite evolved system in terms of the use of resources because it's completely efficient, unexhaustible, and give us a chance to continue providing nutrients to the canals. Because once we have these beddings and this transplant of soil with the seedlings to the intensive beds and the mulch beds, well, all the nutrients get interactions and provide us with more benefits to the soil.
It's a closed system with all kinds of nutrients constantly replenishing itself. When we had our little farm, we lived not far from the ocean, and I used to go down to the water and get buckets of seaweed. Now, I had to rinse it off quite dramatically because, of course, the ocean has salt water in it, and you don't want to put salt on your crops. But that seaweed was so rich in nutrients that I would get the same kind of effect that I think you're talking about here.
That's right. And imagine that seaweed and all the nutrients that it can be provided over a layer of volcanic results. That actually the Ajusco Range is 200 volcanoes, more or less, 100 and something. It's a crazy amount of volcanoes there. But the thing is, all that nutrients were waiting in the bottom of a lake for thousands of years for us to recover it and use them as a seedlings and bedding for our new plants. And the artistic way of also producing that system is beautiful. How the people know how to spread it, how to collect the mud, how to obtain the perfect lines in the nursery, and then handmade seedling. It's amazing because they can reach up to 95% of successful in blooming. It's highly efficient.
Now, Victor, you do tours of Xochimilco with Culinary Backstreets, and I would imagine you're going to visit these individual farms, right?
That's right. The idea it's not just to go to the canals and have a leisure day, but also get an immersion in the practices of the farming, but also in the culture that we have in the market. So that's a beautiful way to match everything. So Xochimilco Market is one of the few ones we have with a farmers market section and a lot of produce obtained from the land in Xochimilco goes to this market. So we can go to the market first and then visit the agricultural center. It's one of the greatest parts of it. So we do the market in the city center, then we cross the neighborhoods in the let's say we call it Los Barrios de Xochimilco, the neighborhoods next to the center, in between the center and the agricultural area. And well, with the group, we have the chance to explore inside of the canals. This extended area gives us a chance to coexist with other kinds of tourism, but can go deeper into the agricultural practices.
Wow, I didn't realize that there is a market. It makes sense because there's markets in most neighborhoods in Mexico City, but I didn't realize Xochimilco had its own market. That's something I missed when I was there. That just means I have to make a return trip. But can you go into a little more detail about that market? Because I'm a big lover of markets when I go to a new city.
Well, there are two stages in the beginning of our tours. That it's going to the 16th century convent of San Bernardino de Siena, one of the first structures built by the Spaniards in Mexico. And basically, it's one of the first points of origin in everything we talk about gastronomy, right? So that's important to talk about it, because San Bernardino convent is one of these first incursions of the Spaniards in the pre-Hispanic world, transforming our diet and bringing more practices. That's why it's in the heart of the city that it used to be, let's say, an island, Xochimilco, and next to this convent, we have the city market, and there's where we have everything. We can try from snacks to tacos de carnitas. We do chiles rellenos. During the excursion in the market, we'll see not just like every single vegetable and plant, but also everything related to daily tradition, from costumes or technology we need to buy, like stone mortars or whatever we need to use for cooking. It's available in this market. It's one of the cleanest and quite interesting structures, but also give us a chance of a small farmers market that has local production. So we have in that farmers area, people coming from the state of Morelos, the state of Michoacán, the next by, the closest state, but also from the region. So it's amazing to see all the fresh crops in one place.
Yeah, so it's not just fruit and veg, but it's other stuff too. And it sounds like there's prepared foods. So you've got taco stands and stuff like that. One thing I like to do when I go to the market is find a souvenir that I can bring home. And, obviously, fresh produce isn't going to maybe travel so well. But can you think of anything? Maybe clothing would be a good idea or something of that nature. But anything else you can think of that I might want to bring home with me?
Something I really recommend on this market is we can buy mole in powder.
Oh, nice.
So that's the best souvenir you can take, because with like 250 grams, you can serve 5 people and tell them about your experiences in Mexico City. So I love eatable souvenirs. So that's one of them. And the other one that it's a common thing for the people to buy is tortilla presses.
Oh,
that markets are amazing to buy tortilla, like hand press, and also volcanic stone mortars. It's a bit heavy if you have space in your bag. I always recommend it to get one there.
It's a great way to make guacamole if you get a nice big one.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I need a tortilla press, because when we moved to Portugal, our tortilla press did not make the cut. Although the last time we were in the States, we did bring home a 4-pound bag of masa so that we can make tortillas at home. Unfortunately, I have to use a wooden pin to roll them out. I don't have a tortilla press here, so I think that'll be on my next trip.
That's put it in the list. Keep some shoes off the bag and leave some space for your tortilla press, because that's one of the souvenirs I always recommend to get.
That's a great idea. There's a lot of very touristy boat tours to go along Xochimilco, and
that's right.
And I mean, I guess those are fun. They've got the colorful boats and things like that, but it sounds like this would be such a better way to really, really understand the culture and to get to try some great food. So it sounds like a really not only fun, but super educational and interesting as well.
Yes, and something I love to say, it's we can coexist. And the idea is to share our practices and our view. And yeah, we're going to be in the same canal next to a colorful boat, but the idea is how to transmit a better message. How to create a new narrative around the place that has given us so much, from water, air, and food to amazing landscapes and beautiful amount of birds. But the idea it's like if you have the chance to go to Xochimilco, go Xochimilco, right? That's the most important thing. And the other part is like the best part of Xochimilco is what made it great, which is agriculture. In terms of the touristic boats, I mean, we are a good touristic boat. It's funny because now one of the greatest things of Xochimilco too is that it can show us how many variations and how many approaches of tourism we have in this area. We have kayakers, we have the party boats, we have our motorboat traveling all the way through the agricultural center. But it's an eye-opening experience. You know, like there's much more than just folklore in the canals. And the better way to use the time is to learn. It's to use it to understand what is it for. Now, the UNESCO protect area, it's about agriculture, not about partying. No, it's like closer to an archaeological site than a party center, you know?
So one thing I did want to ask you about, Victor, because one of the tools that I use when I go to a new city is this website called Atlas Obscura. And this kind of tells you some of the hidden gems, the unusual things that you can see when you go to a new place. Some of them touristy, some of them not so much. But I like using it as a resource. And this is where I learned about something called the Island of the Dolls in Xochimilco. Can you comment about this place?
Well, first, it's part of a urban myth, right? It's part of a thing created around something that it's like barely related to the area, but has transformed into something. Just long story short, it's one of these chinampas that has been transformed into an area with hanging baby dolls. I like the way Mexicans we play with everything and how we like mix and blend. But something very interesting is why do we do it? No, and why do we refer to the Isla de las Muñecas as part of Xochimilco? And well, it's a touristic spot, right? It's an attraction, more than touristic, it's an attraction. And it's basically, let's say, a urban myth that got transformed into attraction. It's a very far away island. It's a place where we normally refer to this Mr. Santana, the person who started hanging the baby dolls, as someone who basically wanted to reject people or attract something. We never know exactly what. There's always something related to a female image, a baby or a girl or some kind of a spirit. But the thing is, why to make something ugly in such a beautiful space?
Mm-hmm.
No?
Yes.
And basically the attraction is because it's one of the longest shots if you want to take a tour. Right? So it's in the forest part of the canals. It's far away. And one of the things that intrigues me a lot, it's how we reach that fame on that spot, because it has no relation with our tradition in terms of, I don't know, religion or faith or any pre-Hispanic culture. I mean, it's baby dolls from the 1970s hanging there. It's one of those mysteries, you know, but it's what I call it a perfect tourist trap. Because it makes us pay the longest ride to go to a place that might disappoint us, but well, then you go there and you spend more than 3 hours on that ride, and sometimes up to 6 hours to get there. Well, to get and go back. And I don't know, it's a kind of a misconception of the traditions, and sometimes creates a misconception also of the place. Because the question is, why do we need to put something so ugly in a beautiful place? When in no culture and no tradition, not even us around the world, no one matches the ugly with water. Nobody matches the image of the dead or the spirits with water, because water normally goes to fertility, goes to beautiness, goes to abundance. No? And these guys, they're playing this discourse or this narrative on an ugly place in a beautiful environment. So it's for me a mystery how human mind works and how we made such a famous place in such a productive area. One of my complaints about the use of the Isla de las Muñecas is that it's not just the first one. Now we have a several amount of copies or replicas along the canals. And the scary part is like the change of the use of the island. The chinampas, they have just one single purpose to exist. And it's providing also with food, not with toilets or with beer or with an ugly place. The complete and only reason for the chinampas to exist is to provide us with food. So the change into the Isla de las Muñecas make me think that somebody is getting benefits to transform in the wrong way the spaces. No? And those benefits are not going to be translated in more benefits. All the opposite. Now we have La Isla de las Muñecas number 2, La Isla de las Muñecas Express, La Isla de las Muñecas with the boogeyman, and basically they're just toilet stops to refill their drinks, using the attraction of the ugly to bring more people. So it is quite an interesting spot. I normally don't recommend to do it if you haven't seen the other side of the Chinampa. No, because if your main goal is to Xochimilco, to cross the canals just to see hanging ugly baby dolls, well, it makes not much sense to me, but it makes sense to people. So sometimes when people eat into the creepy things, they go there.
So let's leave Xochimilco for now and just talk about Mexico City in general. You live in Mexico City. You're from Mexico City, Victor.
Born and raised.
Born and raised. What are some of your favorite things to eat in Mexico City and some of your favorite places to go?
Well, definitely I have to go for tacos al pastor. This is always on the top of my list because they're available. They are like my favorite place. It's just around the corner. And it's always like the comfort food. It comes to my mind at least 3 times a week.
Oh, nice.
So tacos al pastor are always a thing to recommend. And the other part, it's like the magic of exploring. Half of my life is scouting. So something I recommend to the people is to find their own little places. Don't try to follow the flow, but identify the indicators, let's say. If you're walking in a street and then you see a corner full of people, and you cannot see the taco maker and it smells good, stop there and try one taco.
Follow your nose.
That's it. Yes. And if you see that it's a police officer, a chef, and a firefighter, stop and try whatever they're eating. Because that's what that Mexico City offers, an endless source of happiness. Like everywhere you go, in every neighborhood, we have fantastic tacos. Or fantastic soups, so the idea of exploring the city, that's one of the greatest things. It's not just about going to one area or just to one place. It's wherever you are in the city, you have chances to have amazing fresh fruit. That's one of my big loves too. Seasonal fruit. No? So if you're walking in these hot spring days and then you find a mango stand, eat it. If you find watermelon, eat it. And if you have chili spout and that snacky thing we have on the streets, it's always fresh. It's always good. So that's also one of my favorite things to do is to buy fruit. Whenever I feel like having fruit, there's a fruit stand with fresh mangoes or rock melon or papaya and always chili powder.
You know, I'm kind of obsessed with truffles. In fact, so much so that I wrote a book about truffles.
Oh my.
When I was in Mexico City, for the first time, I had something called huitlacoche, which is also a fungus like truffles. It doesn't grow underground. Right. Huitlacoche grows in corn as a fungus. And in the United States, it was called corn smut by the farmers in places like Texas, where they grew it, right. And they would burn the fields if they found this fungus. Now it's become this gourmet item, and I've had huitlacoche in Texas, but first time I had it ever was in Mexico City on some eggs, and it was divine and earthy and delicious and reminded me of truffles. What's your opinion on huitlacoche? Because I know it can be kind of a divisive taste for some people.
Well, I love it. I love it big time. I think also it's not just about having the huitlacoche, but a lot of epazote. That's essential. If you're cooking with huitlacoche, you need the epazote herb, which is a very intense, perfumey herb. And the huitlacoche itself, it's such a how can I say, like adaptable ingredient. Now you can make it in paste, you can make it in soups, you can make it in sauces, but the most common way it's in quesadillas, for instance, just pan fried. And one of the biggest arguments, I mean, apart from the taste, it's in terms of when to eat it and how to produce it. The huitlacoche is a great ingredient full of antioxidants and benefits for the health, but especially in the rainy season. So May, June is when we have the best Huitlacoche beginning, but now you can find it not just related to the rainy season, but also people who like now to inoculate the Huitlacoche to have it all year around.
Oh,
and that's
okay.
one of the biggest arguments now. Should we wait for the season, or it's better to keep a production that constantly works with Huitlacoche around the year? And that's one of the biggest changes in flavor. No, if you eat it in January, the Huitlacoche is going to be one thing. But once you're in the deep, high humid season, June, July, August, the Huitlacoche is a completely different experience, and it's much better. I'm a big fan of eating cacahuacintle corn in the rainy season and Huitlacoche during that season.
Delicious. Yeah, it's kind of the same question with truffles. Like, it has become a domesticated crop now, since we figured out how to inoculate trees with truffle spores and grow them on a commercial level. Or do you want to have the guys who go out into the forest with their dogs and dig them up in nature? So I think that's kind of the same argument that's going on with Huitlacoche.
Well, at the end, it's also a matter of the market. Now the prices of Huitlacoche per kilo are much higher than the production of corn per kilo. So it's also this disjunctive they have in the farming fields, because they don't know. Sometimes they want to produce corn, but they rather to produce Huitlacoche, and it's a matter of cost and prices.
Sure.
But definitely it's a great ingredient, and I'm so glad you call it a truffle and not smut.
No, I think corn smut is kind of a nasty thing to call it, and I think that's, because farmers didn't like it back in the day. But like I said, I love it.
And it was with reason. It's a disease. Technically, it's like we are eating a corn disease happily.
Right. So, Victor, you work really hard taking people out to go see Xochimilco and around Mexico City. But let's say you have a rare day off. Can you share with our audience a place that you like to go that you can recommend to them to eat or to drink in Mexico City?
First, I always ask what people like, because I am an omnivorous. So I eat everything. And sometimes, for instance, tongue tacos, veal tongue.
Oh.
One of my favorite things to eat in any presentation. One of my favorite ones is at El Cardenal in Chester, which is one of my favorite places, right? I also really enjoy the new expressions of Mexican cuisine. Like all those new, like chefs who are taking the tradition and challenging themselves to preserve the flavor, but in the same time bring something else. So there's like always a new restaurant to try. So lately I've been very, very surprised with the great job of Santiago Munoz in Maíz Taco. It's a beautiful restaurant and a taqueria that I highly recommend in Colonia Roma, right? What else I really like? Maíz de Cacao and Expendio de Maíz. All of them have the maíz in their name. But those three lately have gave me amazing, like experiences. I normally recommend the area of Condesa and Roma because it's the most accessible. But also in the south, in Coyoacán, in Tlalpan, we have amazing spots. But for me, Condesa and Roma is still one of the greatest places to explore Mexican diversity in terms of gastronomy. I live here and it's a fantastic spot. So I think the greenery around the city is something to enjoy while you eat. Outdoor restaurants or terraces now are getting more famous. So I highly recommend to try any of the open places.
Great recommendations. Well, Victor Gamboa from Culinary Backstreets, thank you so much. This has been a enlightening, fascinating, and really wonderful conversation. I so appreciate everything that you do, not only to educate people about your city, but also talking about preserving the environment and why this area of Xochimilco is so important to the ecosystem of Mexico City. So thanks for being on the program. It was great talking to you today.
Thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure also to share a bit of this, what we're doing with Culinary Backstreets. Hopefully in about a year, we're going to be talking also about the projects we're trying to run in Xochimilco in order to make agroforestation in this area. And it's one of the projects we're trying to achieve with with Culinary Backstreets and all our guests in Xochimilco. How to deliver something, not just extracting, but leaving something good behind.
Okay, that's Victor Gamboa from Culinary Backstreets. I've got a link to his Xochimilco tours in the show notes, or go to culinarybackstreets.com. Well, that's it for this show. Next week, we're talking sweets with chocolates from New Zealand, sweets made by Spanish nuns, and how to properly eat a cupcake. Don't miss that. Until then, get over to destinationeatdrink.com. I just posted a complete foodie travel guide to Seville, Spain, one of the best food cities in all of Spain and all of Europe, really. I talk about the best tapas bars, the coolest things to do. It's all right there. You can get that at destinationeatdrink.com/Seville. I also have a new video out. It's about one of the world's greatest wine towns, Haro, Spain, Haro. I visit several of the city's best bodegas and try some top-flight vintages. You can see that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or by going to my YouTube channel. That's at Destination Eat Drink 946 at YouTube. And remember, you can support the show with a one-time or recurring contribution at buymeacoffee.com/Destination Eat Drink. And thank you so much for that. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Edzilla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson. I will see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.